All right, let's do a buyout. So what does it mean? It means we're going to buy all the cheaper copies of a given card. Let me just check my audio settings real quick. Is that all the way up? That's all the way up. Hopefully you can hear me. Okay, so what we're going to do in a buyout, get out of there. Is it still working? I hope so. Damn it. Anyway, so you buy all the cheaper copies of a card to raise the price floor to a certain level in order to sell the card at a higher rate too. So you have all the cheaper copies. You sit on them for a while. You let the price settle. You let it hit a higher floor, and then you start reselling them. How does it work in practice? Just like the stock market, it's a gamble, and you normally lose. So time spiral. Is time spiral a good buyout spec? So it's reserve list. 6. Exile it. Everybody shuffles their hand and graveyard into the library, then draw 7 new cards. And you get to untap up to 6 lands if it resolves. So that's pretty damn good. But who plays it? Only EDH players and what few, for lack of a better term, kitchen table players are left. Both of them. Vintage doesn't use it. Legacy doesn't use it. Nobody else can have it because it's too old, too reserved. And looking at these near mint EX copies, anybody wants to play with it. Typically, they're not going to care. They're going to go for the cheapest option possible in a language they understand more often than not. So to buy out Time Spiral and raise the price floor to what, 100 euros, is going to cost a lot of money because you'll have to buy out everything below about 90 euros, and there's a lot of them, as you can see. You would have to buy them all out, sit on them, tie up that money, and keep in mind, none of these prices are what you see. So the 60 euros, that's not 60 euros. That's 65, 70, depends on the shipping option. One thing about MKM that my local game shop, Turner Tige, really has well planned is Turner Tige, they're not cheaper than Magic Card Market, but they do take into account the shipping. So you look at a card on MKM and it's cheaper than Turner Tige, but you have to add in shipping. So you look at the card at Turner Tige, and including shipping on the card from Magic Card Market, Turner Tige is about 10, 20 crowns higher. That's it. And you get the card right away. No risk. No lost in the post bullshit. So they're really good about that. And that's the other thing you have to consider. What are you going to do after you sit on all these damn cards? How long is it going to take? Who's going to buy them off you? How many can you sell at a time? Because if you flood a lot of them into the market at once, you list 20 time spirals back at 80, and they're going to sit there for a while, and they're not going to sell very well. So if you buy them out and you set the price floor, the new price floor at about 100 euros, and you go to sell them for 80, well, how long is it going to take you to sell 10? Who's going to buy it, like I said? But let me show you the card that got me thinking about all this. So I had reason to look up Graven Karn Future Sight foil. The reason for that really is I wanted a River of Tears foil for my Sig River Cutthroat deck, my semi-tribal Spectre deck. And it was more than I wanted to pay for the effect, more than I wanted to pay for River of Tears. And I thought, well, let me check these other lands. Horizon Canopy, yeah, that's expensive. That's really expensive feature set foil. It's about 100 euros to get one in decent condition. But Graven Karn, it's not that much. And I got to thinking, what if we bought it out? And then, of course, as you explore a bad idea, which buying out graven cards is a bad idea, what you do is you either figure out how to make it a good idea, you figure out the parameters and you decide how to overcome it, or it really gets hammered home that it is a bad idea and you don't act on it. Excuse me. So, graven cards. There's not a whole lot foil feature site for sale. We can ignore all the ones that are poor and played because people, let's start with who's going to want this card. So let's take myself as an example. I wanted this card because I just love foils. I love foils and I love having different art on the cards. I like having things that are not unique but a bit different. I've got this card flat in Karavik the Merciless right now, and I thought, okay, for 30 euros, that's not bad, plus shipping, so closer to 35 euros. I can go ahead and get a foil feature set graven card, and if it goes up, it goes up. It's highly unlikely to go down. So, again, who's buying it? Collectors, EDH players that want something different, and that's pretty much it. Because this card, from what I've seen, and I didn't take a deep dive, it's not played in Vintage, Legacy, Modern. It's not played in many other formats, except in niche decks that aren't really well regarded in the meta, aren't well placed in the meta of whatever format you're talking about. Also, for somebody that just wants to play with, spending 30 euros plus shipping to get one in decent condition is a hell of a lot more than just spending 10, if you still want a foil, on the Eventide version, or if you want to go even cheaper, spending 8 plus shipping. Both prices you need to include shipping to get the Double Masters version. So what if we bought out this card? What would happen? Well, we could ignore these three. We could ignore the ones in really poor condition, because anybody that's going to spend decent money on this card is simply going to be that collector, or they're going to be an EDH player that only needs one, and they're going to want to get the best possible condition they can. So spending 12 euros plus shipping on one that's poor to light played, when you can just spend a few euros more and get at least an EX. That's the thought process I've most often encountered. It's the one I hold myself. If that's why I didn't get one of these. That's why I got the, at the time, the cheapest near mint one with shipping. This gentleman here from Austria, he had the cheapest price, but when I added shipping, it was really expensive. So I bought it from this Irishman, and the Irishman's shipping was a lot cheaper, plus he had other things I wanted. That's the other thing to take into account when you're ordering from MCAM, but I digress. Let's talk about buying it out. So we can safely filter out all the poor played, light played, and good ones for the buyout purposes, because the people most likely to buy them in the future are probably going to want excellent at a minimum, and even that they're going to want with hesitation. So if you filter there, wow, see, this is what I saw. I thought, there's not really that many excellent and near mint copies up for sale. You know, for 20, 40, 60, 90, 120, 150, 185, 220, 270, 330 for 330 plus shipping, so you're looking at about 400 euros. For 400 euros, you can wipe out all the foil future sight graven Karn that are below 100 euro. So let's say you did that. Let's say you wiped it out, and the new cheapest one, foil near mint, is this 180 euros. What's going to happen? Can you go and relist them in a month or so at 100 euros each? No. What's going to happen is people are going to see that the cheapest one is now 180, and they're going to say, well, I only bought mine for 10 years ago. I only bought mine for 20 7 years ago. I only bought mine for 30 3 years ago. And they're going to release them at about double to quadruple what they bought them for in order to sell it quickly. So you're going to have a flood of people coming in and listing them for starting at about 150, 120, and they're going to start undercutting each other until you get to probably about 80 euros being the new price floor. That would be my estimation. There's no way of telling how many people have foil future sight graven Karn that they would want to sell. As for myself, the single copy I have, it's just like a lot of my other foils. If I sell it, I won't have it anymore, and I love having it. So if I sell it, at some point in the future, I'd want to have it again. I would want to require it. How much is it going to cost me in the future to require it? If I'm doing a buyout, I'm doing it with the expectation that if I raise the price through my actions, I'm going to set it higher, so I'm not going to be able to buy it back should I decide to do so in the future. Sorry for the distraction. Somebody's trying to ring me, but I'm talking to all of you. We're talking about a buyout. We're doing some work here. Let's keep doing some work. So where was I? Yes. So if the new price floor becomes, say, 80, 100 euros, and you've bought out this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, this about 10 copies. So you've bought about 10 copies. And you list a couple for 80 euros. You're going to get some quick tendies, right? You're going to get quick turnover, quick money. Well, no. As we spoke of before, who wants this card? The random EDH player, the random collector. So this is an obscure card from by today's standards of 2024, an old set. By my standards, somebody who's been playing since 1994, this isn't really an old set. It feels like almost yesterday. Not quite, but pretty damn close. But for anybody that's gotten the game in the last few years, they probably don't know about this card. They probably don't know about this set. If they do want a Graven Karn, if they realize that filter lands are a thing, then they'll probably go for the Eventide cheaper one, or the Double Masters cheaper one. This one they would only go for if they want the art specifically, and foil, they'd really have to consider it. So I expect that if you did raise the price artificially, and you listed them, they would sit there for a long time. So what are you going to do? You're going to start dropping the price to try to get a buyer. And when you start dropping the price, trying to get a buyer, trying to recoup some of your money. Now, if you can sit on it, if you've got the financial resources to sit on these for a long time at 80 euros a piece, good on you. But who knows how many years that would take to recoup your money. Who knows what other opportunities could have come by that you could have redirected this capital on. And again, it's only, what do we say, only 400 euros. It shouldn't break anybody in the grand scheme of things. But it's still a big chunk of change, and most Magic players don't have 400 euros just sitting around to tie up for God knows how long in something like this that they can't do anything else with. So, in conclusion, Graven Carnes, buying it out is a bad idea, and I wouldn't recommend it. That said, if somebody does it, and the price goes up to 100 euros, I'm going to be awfully tempted to sell mine. Right, should we look at another one? Should we look at another potential buyout spec? Because, to sum up, when you buy out a card, you want to find something that is not only limited quantity enough for sale at the time, but is desirable by a large segment of your target audience. The cards are affordable to buy out. Somebody would want to buy them at the end. You had the means to not only tie up the capital, but to sit on these for God knows how long, and to withstand the setback shocks of once you start a buyout, other people with the cards that don't have them listed are going to see there's a buyout happening and start listing their cards at random prices according to how much they spent on the card, how much they expect to get out of the card, and possibly undercut you heavily, possibly add more fuel for your buyout. So let's say you buy this out, the price floor becomes 180. 6 people come on, a couple of them had them for 150, a couple of them had them for 100, a couple of them have them for 80, because they see that that's the floor now. They will set the floor at 80, and a couple months go by and none of the cards get sold because nobody wants this card for 80. Nobody wants this card for 100 euros. It's not worth it, not with the other options available. So this 80 guys, eventually they'll drop them to 70, 60, maybe they'll drop them to 50, and then you could snap them up. But typically that takes a few months, and in a few months you're not lifting yours, you're just sitting on them. You're just tying at the capital. And then in for a penny, in for a pound, if you get some other copies coming on that you can buy, you might as well snap them up and add your position and just sit on them and tie up more capital. So what would happen if we bought out, say, the Zendikar Expedition Graven cards? Wow. That's even cheaper, but my God, is there a lot of them. So if you wanted to raise the price ceiling by buying it out to, say, 50 euro, you will have to do a lot of work. It always gets me. You always have some random guy, 190. I've seen stupid nonsense cards listed for 1,000 euros because they have a placeholder, because they don't know what the price is going to be during some unexpected period in the market. For example, a new set is released, and they think some card will work with the set, so they list the card at 1,000 in order to see if it plays out or not, if the card actually becomes part of a combo and people start really wanting it. Then they reset that 1,000 back to something reasonable, but still much higher than they would normally have had it. But yeah, if you wanted to buy out the Zendikar Expedition Graven Cairn, what are we looking at? 70 copies? 70 copies at about 30 euros each. So we're looking at 2,100 euros plus shipping, 3,000 euros. 3,000 euros to buy out all the copies below 50 that are near mint and excellent of Zendikar Expeditions Graven Cairn. Let's see what poor played, light played good has. I don't expect too many because it's being a newer card. People should be taking care of them better. As cards are, older cards, say from Onslaught 7th edition, those foils, people didn't take care of the cards as well as they do now. They were kind of new. A lot of people didn't appreciate how rare they were, how hard it was to actually get a 7th edition or Destiny, Urza's Destiny, or Urza's Legacy foil out of a box. It was bloody hard. I think it was 1 per box or something like Time Spiral, maybe even less than that. So today, with more foils, and people understanding that they do have value, you see fewer thrashed copies up for sale. Also being newer, there's been less time for them to be played, to be abused. So if you spent 3,000 euros to jack up the price of Expeditions Graven Karn, and then what happens? Well, you've got a worse problem. I would say you have a harder time than if you try to buy out the future sector. And keep in mind, this isn't card specific. I'm not specifically picking on these cards for anything other than an illustration. My thoughts on buyouts go for any card that one might consider buying out to jack up a floor. Rudy and Moxman, they talk about this a lot, especially Rudy. And he, because it's his business, he goes deep into, well, then you have the listing fees on eBay. Because he deals with the U.S. market, so he deals with all the nonsense that an American seller would do. On Magic Card Market, for those of you that do not know, when you sell a card, MKM takes a 5% cut to in order to maintain the website, in order to keep everything running. It's fair, and I think it's a good way to run things. So when you go back to sell, you've got to think of the Magic Card Market fees. You've got to think of the eBay fees. You've got to think, okay, how many of these are going to get lost in the post and or flat out stolen? Over my career as a seller, I've probably sold about 200 times over 10 years, which is nothing compared to the big guys, nothing. And I've lost 1 registered letter. It went to Poland and just disappeared, but it was registered. Just went off the radar. And then another package to Canary Islands, disappeared. So you've got to think of loss. You've got to think of when you're doing your margins, okay, how many of these cards should I expect are going to get stolen, are going to get lost, are going to be a write-off as far as my investment? How many are going to arrive and the seller has a complaint, the buyer has a complaint and wants to send it back and I have to deal with that? Maybe I thought it was near mint or EX and I get it and it's not. How many of these near mint copies are actually near mint? I would say most of them, but a few of them aren't going to be because the seller either didn't care or they haven't looked at it in a while. And they just remembered they bought a near mint copy, but it wasn't, and they listed it for near mint, and you get it, and it's EX or good, and then you have to sort that out. Do you keep it? Do you send it back, get a refund? That takes time. That takes money. That takes energy. So, again, to actually be in conclusion, to conclude this video, buying out a card it's an interesting idea. It can be a fun game. Some people do it with some penny stock card. Moxman, as his meme, is buying out Soldivy excavations. That's his channel meme. He's not serious about it because he knows how many copies are out there. And it's not going to happen. Because every time his audience goes to buy it out, after a few months, other sellers come in and there's more available. But let me know what you think. You think of doing a buyout now? Am I going to check on that future site foil Graven Karns in a week and somebody snapped up every one on 100 euros and I should relist mine? Cheers.